Do you ever find your native colleagues really difficult to understand? If so, on today's episode, we've got a native speaker asking you small talk questions. We are going to look at the question in depth so that you can feel confident you know what it means the next time you hear it. Let's crack on. Hello and welcome back to Confident Business English. I'm Anna, your host and neuro-language coach. If you love the podcast, you should definitely join as a free member. You're going to get the transcripts, the newsletter, and lots of extra content. Link to join in the show notes. What I imagine you really want is to just connect with your colleagues, to feel like you can have a conversation with them that you understand. But it can be really hard with native speakers. We can speak very fast, we use a lot of colloquial language, and that was really the idea behind the Real Business Conversation series. To try and help expose you to some of these different accents and different ways of speaking that you might come across in the workplace. You're very lucky as well because I've managed to rope in one of my friends who's from Liverpool. She works in finance and she is going to ask you some small talk questions. And the objective of this is really just to give you a little bit of a challenge and to go through some really common small talk questions, but at a native speaker pace. So here's the context. This is you and her. We're going to call her Sarah. And she's going to ask you a few questions that you might find at the start of the meeting. You're going to hear a really short clip with the question, which I'm going to play twice. And what I really want you to focus on is, what is this person asking me? This is a more advanced challenge. So don't worry if you listen to it the first time and you're like, that's super fast. I've got absolutely no idea. We're going to go over the question afterwards, look at it in depth, and then I'll play it for you again to see if you can hear it back after we've analysed it. Here's the first one.
Did you get up to much this weekend? Did you get up to much this weekend?
What do you think? You might get it from the context, but maybe you're thinking, okay, I would just answer with what I think, but I don't know exactly the question that they're asking me. She's asking you this. Did you get up to much this weekend? Said very fast, sounds something like, did you get up to much this weekend? What she's asking you is, did you do a lot this weekend? That's it. It's not anything more complicated than that. Therefore, the answer would be something like, well, yes, I was with my family, we did something, or no, not much really, nothing special. It was just a quiet one, thanks. See if you can hear it now going back. Did you get up to much this weekend?
Did you get up to much this weekend?
Moving on. Question number 2.
Have you got a lot on this week? Have you got a lot on this week?
What are you picking up from that then? Again, maybe from the context you're like, I think she's asking me about my week, and you would be right, but the exact question she's asking you is, have you got a lot on this week? Which, when said in the moment very fast, could be quite confusing. But all we're asking you is, are you busy this week? And this is another way to express that. Have you got a lot on this week? How do you answer it? Well, yeah, I'm pretty busy this week, or no, I haven't got a lot on this week. Actually, it's a pretty quiet week, to be honest. Notice how I'm using this adjective quiet. Quiet weekend, quiet week. That's quite a normal, natural way to describe it. See if you can hear it back again. Have you got a lot on this week?
Have you got a lot on this week?
Moving on, let's have a look at the next one.
Project's going well? Project's going well?
What's she asking you then? I think this one's more straightforward and easy to pick up. But the question she's asking you is, project's going well? You might be thinking, but Anna, that's not a question. She should be saying, are your projects going well? This is a thing that's typical with native speakers. We often drop elements in the question. So instead of saying, are your projects going well, which is absolutely fine, we're going to say something like, projects going well? It's more efficient, it's a little bit more informal, it's more natural in the flow of conversation, and very, very common in casual speech. But that makes it a little bit harder because when you're listening to it, and if they say it very fast, it's like, project's going well? and you're like, what was that? That's what we're doing there. So see if you can hear it back this time, again, with that in mind.
Project's going well.
And then, of course, in your response, you can say, yeah, project's going well, thank you, or everything's on track. Yeah, nothing to report. There's not a black and white answer. There's loads of different ways that you could answer that question, but that's what she's asking you. Project's going well. Next question.
Anything to report projects-wise? Anything to report projects-wise?
What are you picking up there? This one is more tricky, so let's break it down. She's saying, anything to report project-wise. Here we've got advanced vocabulary and we've got dropping the elements. So really the question should be, do you have anything to report project-wise? But we drop it, we shorten it. Anything to report project-wise? Anything to report is kind of a way to say, is there anything you need to tell me? And project-wise is a way to say related to the project. Equally, it could be anything to report budget-wise, just meaning anything to tell me in relation to the budget. You might also hear it when people introduce sentences. Imagine that your colleague is giving you an update and they might say something like, well, budget-wise, everything is on track. We use this wise feature with several different types of nouns, but I would say most commonly things like project-wise, strategy-wise, contract-wise, team-wise, preparation-wise. It is quite flexible and you can use it with different words and you can have a little bit of fun with it, but it is informal speaking, so it wouldn't be appropriate in a formal written context, for example, just so you know. All right, let's move on to the next question.
How's things going over there in Madrid? How's things going over there in Madrid?
Maybe from the context, you're like, okay, she's asking me if it's okay in Madrid, but I don't really know the exact question. Well, it is. How are things going over there in Madrid? Sped up, native speed. How are things going over there in Madrid? This is a really common question people ask you if you're based in a different office. How are things going over there in London? How are things going over there in Boston? How are things going over there in Poland, for example? It's a really common question just to open up the conversation a little bit and just ask you a little bit about where you're from. And maybe you might respond with something about the weather, or you might refer to something that's been in the news lately. In fact, somebody might ask you that question partly because there's been something in the news. Take a listen again and see if you can hear all the elements.
How's things going over there in Madrid?
All right, next one.
Up to much this weekend? Up to much this weekend?
Again, you might think she's asking me about my weekend, but I don't know the exact question, which is up to much this weekend. If you remember from the question at the beginning, she said, did you get up to much this weekend? And so here we're dropping part of the question. So it should be, are you up to much this weekend? But instead we say up to much this weekend, which plain and simply means, are you doing anything this weekend? So you can answer, oh yeah, I'm doing da-da-da-da. Oh yeah, I'm going to go and visit my blah, blah, blah. Oh no, nothing special, just a quiet one this weekend, thanks. And you? Have another listen this time and see if you can pick it up if you couldn't before.
Up to much this weekend?
Moving on to the next question.
How's the family? How's the family?
Maybe you're like, okay, I've got family, but I wasn't really sure what she said before that. So I'm just going to say, yeah, they're great, thanks. And you wouldn't be wrong if you said that, because she's asking you, how is the family? Which at a native speed translates to, how's the family? How's the family? And interestingly here, we don't say, how's your family? I mean, you could, but we actually often say, how's the family? Especially when we're speaking informally to somebody that we know well. Typical answers you could use there. Everybody's doing great, thanks for asking. Everybody's doing really well, thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of the episode today. I hope you found that useful in terms of hearing what those questions actually sound like from a native speaker. What I really hope as well is that you're going to hear some of these questions now and you're going to know what they mean, and you're going to feel confident when you answer them that you're answering the right thing. As I said before, if you're a member, I'm going to give you the audio uninterrupted so you can go back and listen to it as many times as you want until you can really get the sounds if you found that more difficult. Also in the newsletter this week, I will be putting the questions in written format as well as some other examples to help you out and some tips. Don't forget to sign up if you want to become a member and get those things. The link is in the description box of this episode. Thank you, as always, for squeezing me into your very busy day, whether it's in the morning, at the gym, on the way home, giving the dog a walk, whatever it is. I'm really happy to be here with you, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.